5 ghosts lifted from Ukrainian soil. In a field near Khan, the earth trembled. Not from artillery, but from ignition. 5 Ukrainian drones, sleek and angular, tore into the pre-dawn sky, their rocket motors painting orange scars against the dark. Their target, a Russian oil depot in Crimea, the lifeblood of the Black Sea Fleet. But the Ukrainians weren't naive. They knew a Russian zoo park counter-battery radar parked opposite Kerch was watching. Its powerful beams could sniff out a mortar shell at 50 kilometers. A drone climbing like this, it would scream across their screens like a fire alarm. This was the point. Inside the Humming command trailer, the Russian operator's world was green lines and scrolling data. Then it erupted. Beep, 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 beep. 5 heat contacts, rising fast from Ukrainian territory. His screen populated in a heartbeat. Initial velocity 180 meters per second. Climb angle 45 degrees. Acceleration profile, solid fuel rocket motor. His pulse spiked. He'd seen this signature 100 times in drills. The zoo park is a mathematician's weapon. It doesn't just see targets, it predicts their funeral. It needs only 3 radar pings in 3D space to solve the equation of death. First ping, 100 meters altitude. Position locked. Second ping, 300 meters. Velocity confirmed. Third ping, 500 meters. Trajectory calculated. The computer chewed the data for a millisecond. Physics doesn't lie. Projectile goes up, projectile comes down. The algorithm, perfected over decades to track artillery shells, rendered its verdict. Calculation complete. Projectile type, M31 GMLRS rocket. Launch platform, HIMARS. Impact point. Grid squares near Chaplinka. Time to impact, 47 seconds. The operator's breath caught. HIMARS. The name alone sent a chill through the Russian high command. Precision hell. Ammo dumps, command posts, fuel stores vaporized in an instant. He snatched the encrypted phone, his voice tight. 5 HIMARS rockets inbound. Impact in 45 seconds. The warning flashed across 5 command nets. The countdown timer on his screen bled numbers. 40 seconds. 30. 20. He pictured the panic at Chaplinka. Officers scrambling for cover. 0. He braced for the impact reports. Silence. He stared. The 5 tracks on his screen simply ended. Not with explosions on the ground. They vanished in mid-air, 8 kilometers south of the launch site. The radar kept painting empty sky. What? Then it clicked. A cold realization dripped down his spine. They didn't follow the parabola. They dove. Right after that third ping at 500 meters, they dropped below his radar horizon. Over land, his system could track a bird 30 meters up. But over water? The radar's own logic created a blind spot, a chaos of wave clutter and false returns. A dead zone. These weren't dumb rockets. They were thinking machines. They'd mimicked the launch signature of America's most feared artillery system, just to trick his radar into looking the wrong way. "Idi nahui," he hissed, slamming his console. He switched the system from ballistic to cruise mode. Ballistic looks for arcs. Cruise hunts for things that fly, that maneuver. He'd been waiting for falling rocks when he should have been hunting sharks. Last known position, 8 kilometers south. Heading 230 degrees. Speed to 150 kilometers per hour. They'd been flying low over the water for minutes while he waited for an impact that never came. They could be anywhere. The Russian fighter pilot banked his twin-engine beast westward, the first hints of dawn bleeding onto the horizon. The order from Belbek Air Base crackled in his encrypted data link. Investigate unknown, slow-moving contacts, possible hostile drones. His multifunction display showed 5 faint icons, skimming the waves 100 kilometers out. The problem was, his radar couldn't see them. The N11 M-BARS radar on his Su-30 is a mechanical beast. Its rotating antenna can spot a bomber at 140 kilometers, but it's designed for things with a radar cross-section bigger than a dinner table. These drones, they were the size of a suitcase, built from composites that absorbed radar waves. At 15 kilometers, where his screen should have been lit up, he got ghosts, flickers. He switched to his infrared search and track, a basketball-sized sensor under the nose that can spot a jet exhaust from 50 kilometers. Nothing. These drone engines ran cooler than a car's. He tried electronic surveillance, listening for control signals, radio silence. The identification matrix in his head offered no answers. No IFF transponder response. Speed matched a Russian Orlan 1-0 or a Ukrainian modified civilian drone or a captured Iranian Shahed. Both sides flew the same stuff now. He had seconds to decide. Friend or foe? His weapons options were all wrong. Heat-seeking missiles? The drones had no heat signature. Radar-guided missiles? The drones were invisible to radar. That left his 30mm cannon. He'd have to get within a kilometer, matching his 400+ kmh jet against a drone crawling at 150. It was like trying to thread a needle from a speeding motorcycle. He radioed for guidance, negative visual ID, request instructions. The silence from ground control stretched 15 seconds, 30. They were checking databases, making calls. Every second, the drones slid closer to the Crimean coast. Finally, the order. Close for visual ID. Weapons hold. He descended, lining up behind the trailing drone. At 200 meters altitude, fuel burned fast. He had maybe 5 minutes. His radar warning receiver was silent. He'd set his own IFF transponder to standby to avoid spooking the drones. It was a fatal mistake. The S-400 operator 150 kilometers away saw a very different picture on his 91 N6E Big Bird acquisition radar. He saw 5 unknown low-flying contacts, and he saw one fast, aggressive fighter maneuvering right on top of them, and that fighter's IFF was off. No Russian pilot flies in a combat zone without IFF screaming friend. The geometry was textbook Ukrainian. Drones as bait, a fighter as escort. The operator's hand hovered over the firing key. Doctrine was clear. Unknown fighter plus engagement zone equals weapons free. Something felt off. The flight profile looked Russian, but logic overrode instinct. If it was one of ours, it would be broadcasting IFF. It's not. Therefore, it's not ours. Probability logic, usually, right? Sometimes catastrophically wrong. He turned the key. The launch authority light glowed green. 2, 4, 8, and 6 DM missiles erupted from their tubes. 0 to Mach, 6 inches seconds. One headed for the drone swarm, the other locked onto the silent fighter. The missile aimed at the drones immediately faltered. Its brain was built for supersonic cruise missiles, not subsonic drones. The guidance system choked, trying to calculate an intercept with something moving so slow. It was like using a sniper rifle to shoot a gnat. The missile aimed at the Su-30 had no such problem. In the cockpit, the pilot's world exploded in lights and sirens. Missile lock. Launch detected. He frantically flipped his IFF to on, flooding the spectrum with friendly codes. Too late. The 4, 8, and 6 DM doesn't have a recall button. It only knows one thing: delete target. He dove, dumping chaff and flares in prescribed Russian patterns. Useless. Russian missiles train against Russian countermeasures. The Seeker saw through the tricks. At 1,000 meters, with a missile a heartbeat away, he pulled the ejection handle between his legs. The K-36D seed rocketed him into the sky. 2 seconds later, the missile's proximity fuse did its job. The $35 million Su-30 vanished in a fist of orange fire and black smoke, raining debris into the sea. Chaos. Sheer, unadulterated chaos. The S-400 battery commander was screaming, demanding to know why a friendly fighter had no IFF. Belbek Tower was scrambling search and rescue. Yevpatoria was in denial, trying to confirm if they'd just killed their own man. Radio channels melted down with overlapping shouts, accusations, and confusion. In the heart of this hurricane of incompetence, 5 Ukrainian FP, 2 drones, unseen, unreported, turned their noses east. Their target, the Gvardiskoye depot, now just 35 kilometers away. The entire western Crimean air defense network was paralyzed, staring at its own navel. The Panstir crew had heard the radio chaos. They knew something was wrong, but their radar screen was clear. The first warning wasn't electronic. It was the sound of bees, a low, persistent hum from the west. By the time the Panstir's 1 RS-11E radar found them, it was already almost too late. 5 contacts, 7 kilometers out, 180 seconds to impact. The operator's training took over. The Panstir S1 is a brutal piece of machinery, a radar, 12 missiles, and twin 30mm cannons on one truck. But it has one flaw. Its fire control can only guide 4 missiles at once. He launched 257 E6 missiles. They streaked out at Mach 3. 2 drones evaporated into shrapnel clouds. 3 kept coming. The surviving drones began their death dive. Through their cameras, the tank farm looked like a perfect grid of white-hot circles against the cool earth. Their AI brains picked targets. Tank #3 upwind for fire spread. Tank #1 aviation fuel, highly volatile. Tank #8 the northern anchor. The Panstir's cannons opened up a torrent of tungsten spraying at 5,000 rounds per minute. Rounds sparked off a drone's wing, tearing it apart. It spiraled down and impacted another fuel tank. The explosion was a thunderclap. Windows shattered for kilometers. The last 2 drones were now in a near vertical dive. The Panstir's guns strained upward, hitting their elevation limit. They couldn't follow. At 100 meters, the drones cut their engines, silent, guided by gravity alone. The first drone hit tank #3 like a hypersonic spear, piercing the steel roof. The warhead detonated in the vapor-rich space above the fuel. The tank didn't just explode, it unzipped. 2.5 million liters of diesel vomited upward in a ground-level mushroom cloud, a firestorm rolling outward at 100 meters per second. 8 seconds later, the second drone struck tank #1. Aviation fuel. The thermal pulse was a sun being born. It ignited the vapors from adjacent, ruptured tanks. Within minutes, the depot was an apocalypse. A column of black smoke climbed 4,000 feet into the morning sky. Satellite imagery would later show total devastation. 5 tanks vaporized, 3 collapsed, 2 burning for days. The FP-2 drones achieved what 1,000 missiles couldn't. They didn't destroy an air defense radar or shoot down a jet, they starved them. Russian fighters at Saki and Belbek were grounded the next day, not by battle damage, but because their fuel was at the bottom of a smoking crater. The Ukrainians used physics as a prop. They weaponized Russian doctrine, exploited the blind spots in their own technology, and turned a multi-layered billion-dollar air defense network into a confused, self-cannibalizing mess. They didn't win with superior firepower. They won with superior mind power. They fed the Russian system a lie. It was desperate to believe a HIMARS strike, and while the system was busy preparing for that fictional threat, the real one slipped through the gap in its logic. The nightmare for Russia isn't just the loss of fuel, it's the revelation. The realization that their entire, intricate defense system can be hacked not with code, but with psychology. That their greatest weakness isn't the gap in their radar coverage, but the rigid assumptions programmed into their machines and the men who blindly trust them. The drones are thinking, and they're thinking faster. Bye for now.